Welcome to Jon Ferrian Live. Come on in and check it out. Grab a bottle of water. If you're at home safe and sound, grab a beer, a glass of wine. Just chill for a little bit. We're going to be hanging out, talking sleds. We're going to be talking safety. We're going to be talking education tonight, right here on Jon Ferrian Live. Hopefully you guys are doing well during quarantine here during the COVID-19 epidemic, the pandemic. We are here watching shows, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're at. So as you're coming in and watching, do me a favor. You all know the routine. Drop where you're watching from. We love it when we see the names and where you're watching from. And yes, David Wagner, happy Easter to everybody. And by the way, happy birthday. So once we get the show started and I get my buddy Ryan Koch on here, we're going to sing Edith happy birthday. Ryan, just so you know, that's coming, so get ready. We're going to sing happy birthday to Edith. Might be a shortened version, but we're going to make it happen. And all everybody at home, you can sing along and we're going to make it happen. But it's Easter Sunday, April 12th, my wife's 29th birthday. We're just going to go with that. 29 years old again this year. We're going to keep rocking it. But anyway, what you're watching is Jon Ferrian Live. We typically come to you every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time, right now, right here on Facebook. And we're streaming it out. It ends up on YouTube, too. If you ever want to go watch old episodes on YouTube, look up Live Large Universe. Live Large Universe is where you'll find the episodes of Jon Ferrian Live on YouTube. Or you can go to Jon Ferrian Live on Facebook, and that's where you'll find all of the old episodes there as well. So share this out, guys. Share and win contest is ready to roll. Check it out. We're giving away, right over there, we're giving away this sweatshirt that I'm wearing tonight. Not this one, but the same kind. It's the corporate zip-up hoodie. It's a super cozy. It's all lined on the inside with like a furry type, inside. It's super cozy, super comfortable, zips up and down, looks good on you. We're going to give one of those away too. All you got to do is watch tonight's show, share the show, follow Fly Racing on Instagram and on Facebook, and just share this out. Once you get it in, shared it in, we're going to give it away. So probably mid to late this coming week is when we'll do the contest. We'll look at everybody who shared, and we'll get it out there. So again, we got a lot of people coming in watching. Let me just call some folks out who are watching. We'll get it out there. We got David Wagner. We got Jared Griffith. We got Todd. We got Bill. We got Jared, Dan, Michael, Tia is here, Craig is here, Todd is here, Cassidy's here, Todd is here, JR is here, Scott is here, Rich is here, Byron is here, and Bill is here. Don't forget to let us know where you're watching from, and we're going to bring it up here in just a second. Right now, we're going to drop the canvas in 3, 2, and 1, and here he is. Welcome, Ryan, to the show. Welcome to Jon Ferrian Live, buddy.
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good, good. So, Ryan, you reached out to me a few weeks back, and it was interesting because, I think we knew each other from Facebook, but I don't think, tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever met in person, right?
No, not in person. Just following back and forth and talking here and there.
Exactly. I always, people send me messages, I respond back, and, I have a lot of people I engage with too. But, from my perspective, the call was a little bit out of the blue because we hadn't had a lot of interaction over the past. But, again, follow each other on social media. And there was something that you shared with me is like, man, John, I've been following the show and we've been doing this a long time. And you know what? I was pinned underneath my sled a few weeks ago and I thought of you. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And we're going to get into that a little bit tonight as we talk about the show and go into it. It's a pretty interesting story about how you feel like this show and some of the information that we've shared in the past helped you kind of get through the situation you were in. And we're going to highlight that as we go through the show tonight, which is pretty cool. So anything on that real quick that you want to talk about before we get you officially introduced?
No, I mean, that kind of covers the gist of it to start off with. So
okay. Yeah, no problem, man. So tell us a little bit about, who is Ryan Koch? Where do you live? Maybe what do you do for your day job? How long you been sledding? Family, whatever you want to share, buddy. Give us a little background on who you are.
Well, I'm going to be 35 this month. Father of 4. I got 2 boys, 2 girls. I work at the refinery here in town as a lead lab technician. I started riding when I was 9. My grandpa and dad had some 1980 enticers, and it started there. I didn't ride for about 6 years, and then I moved to Wyoming and started riding again and got into mountain sleds. Got addicted.
Sounds
Now
good, man.
all my kids are addicted. My wife's addicted. So it's
Yeah, snowmobiling is one of those things that's incredible. You can do it as a family sport. You can go out with your buddies, and it kind of you can cover everything. And from my perspective, and I think from yours too, is you can enjoy all of it. It doesn't matter if you're just going out for an easy family ride or if you're going to go shred it with the buds.
oh yeah, definitely. Wife still comes along with most of those trips. She's at least the camera lady.
Awesome,
So
awesome. Cool. So before I forget, we owe a happy birthday song. You mentioned you were going to be 35. Today is my wife's birthday, and in honor of her, I'm going to give a shortened version of Happy Birthday. We'll do like the first verse. You ready? Go
yeah.
with me, and everybody watching will sing along too. You ready?
All right.
Happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday to
you. Happy
happy
birthday to
birthday.
you. Happy
Happy birthday.
birthday, dear Edith.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to you. There you go. And happy Easter, by the way, everybody. So this is
That's
awesome.
right.
It's a great way. So yeah, with my wife, we built her a fire pit yesterday, and we spent quite an evening out with a couple of friends while social distancing, 6 feet apart around the fire. Let's just be honest, right? But the big block beer went down smooth last night as we were sitting around the fire campfire last night, and it was a late night, so it was just a chill day here at home on Easter Sunday. It was kind of nice. So
Nothing wrong with that at all. It's,
cool, cool. So you've been riding a long time. Like how many years have you been riding? Most of your life, or how long have you been mountain
yeah.
riding specifically?
Mountain riding. I started mountain riding in 2011 with a group of guys out here in the Black Hills.
Okay.
Newcastle, where I live, we're about 23 miles from the base of the Black Hills. So I started riding with them, and then got kind of acquainted with the Snowy Mountain Range down in Laramie, and I've been in the Bighorns. And as the years went off, I met my wife, and she wanted me to start buying newer sleds so I could do more. And she took my old sleds, and now I'm starting to buy brand new sleds, and she gets my leftovers. So,
By the way, that's a whole nother show for another episode. But make sure you're getting her on the good sled so she can learn how to ride the good stuff in the right way. It makes a big difference for the ladies when they're out riding the newer, more modern stuff.
oh yeah, yeah, they're definitely new. They're still newer. She just likes me to have the stuff under warranty, so when I break it.
There you go. There you go. Nice, nice. Well, why don't you take us back? Let's kind of just cut to the chase here a little bit, but take us back to the day of your accident. Again, it happened a few weeks back, but start with the night before, or like even the week before, as you were planning this trip and who you were going to ride with and what's going on. But just kind of talk us through, what you'd consider like a normal kind of a ride plan specific to this ride plan. What would you, in perfect world, intend to have done versus what you did. And as we go through this kind of step by step, let's reflect along the way on, what went right and what went wrong. And ultimately, how did you survive this accident, right, is what we'll get to before we get to the end of the story here. But, by the way, we're thankful to have you here. Are you still wearing the brace, or have you kind of loosened that
Oh
up
yeah,
now?
yeah, it's still there.
Yep.
I'm ready to take it off, but I'm not supposed to yet. So
Yep. Yeah, you better off babying a little bit extra long. So
yeah, but it's hard. But no,
cool.
it started off. I mean, we started planning the trip months ago. Some buddies of mine from Minnesota came down and rode the Black Hills,
Okay.
and they wanted to do a trip up in the Bighorns. They wanted to try some other areas out here. So I talked to the president of the 307 Riders in Gillette and said, hey, these guys want to go ride. He said, let's do it. So then my wife, she wanted to go, and another buddy of mine that rides, he wanted to go and brought his brother along, which we kind of brought a newbie along going to some territory that shouldn't have, but it's kind of a different story. But so we had everything prepped, made sure, everybody had the right gear, everything like that. So then the morning of comes and we take off and everything's great. We ride the first day, everybody's super tired, trying to help the new kid get unstuck, and a lot of the trying to teach while trying to ride. It was kind of a rough day. So, well, we went back to the cabin, social distance,
Yep.
stayed 6 foot apart, and then just talking about different things that you can do, and then just a normal night. Just checked everybody's radios, make sure they were charged, or if they needed charge, we charged them. And then we get up the next morning, we have breakfast, check all the sleds, get them all unloaded, make sure they're good to go. Made sure everybody's bags were all tight, secure, and then we took off. Should have done a little bit more prep before we took off, but it was kind of a comfortable day. We didn't plan on doing anything too hard because we were all tired, so we didn't do an intrusive check, but we checked radios before we took off, and everybody was, they could key in and they could hear, so everybody was good to go. And we took off, and it was probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We found an amazing area to ride. I mean, there was cornices just blown out, 2 foot, nice powder, just beautiful spots. So we started playing in it, and well, we rode off to the side, and they had gone up and rode some steep area. And so I looked next to it, and there's some cornices right next to where they had went up. I just thought nobody wanted to hit them. So I took off and started hitting them harder and harder, just jumping over the top and landing. Well, I hit the last one probably wide open, and I shouldn't have, of course. But when I looked down, it was a hole.
Uh-oh.
Like there was nothing underneath me. And I just barely made it to the other edge, and there was a tree. So I tapped the brake, and the sled kicked me off, and it threw me face first into the snow. And as I went to stand up, I seen the sled cartwheel, and then that was the last thing that I could actually see. It came down at the tunnel. It bounced off the ski tips, the tunnel, and the footwell came down on top of my helmet and my arm.
Yeah.
Nothing else of the sled touched the snow. And then it pinned me underneath the sled. And I normally wear a wireless tether, so it's got a battery controller in it. But the batteries kept going dead, so I just unhooked it. I was riding without. So as I'm laying there, I start panicking, and the sled's still running. And I tried pushing and wiggling and tried everything that I could. And then all of a sudden, I made myself, like listening to your show and, other guys that just people talking about staying calm in crazy situations. Like that's the biggest issue is like making sure that you're calm. So I took some deep breaths, and I was able to get my leg out from underneath the footrest because after it came down, my leg was kind of stuck. So I was able to move it, and then I realized my hand was right next to my radio.
Okay.
And I was able to reach up and push the button and call for help. And about 20 seconds after that, maybe a little less, I'm not sure on the time, of course, but I heard Kelly Weeks, the president of the 307 Riders Club. I could hear his sled flying up the hill, and then the next thing I know, my sled is thrown off of me. And at that time, just trying to catch my breath and realize, like, you're still alive. But I've never been hit that hard by anything. I mean, 515 pounds is a lot heavier than you would think it is coming down on top of you.
And a lot of it is just depending on your position, right? Like if you're face down, you're face up. If you're face down and the sled's on top of you and you got nothing, I mean, you can't even lift on the sled hardly, right? Or were you face up?
No.
Were you face down? Or which direction were you face?
Sideways.
Sideways, okay.
The seat was about right in my visor.
Okay.
So luckily it was because I just went to stand up. Like I just went to stand up, and it caught me right in the helmet.
Yeah.
And across the arm, and I caught the full weight of the sled and straight into the snow.
Yeah.
And it was ice packed down in that hole. You could tell that it had wind blown and froze.
Yeah. So it's just like a wind blowout is what it was the hole that you're talking about. And what you're describing and the way I'm envisioning it is you kind of jumped off the cornice. As you jumped off the cornice, like you probably didn't see what was on the other side until you're almost airborne, right? And at that point, you just barely clear the hole. And I'm assuming your skis probably land on top of the next part of the hole, on the lip of the hole. And then the sled kicked up on you and you got kicked off. Is that basically a somersault?
I was going uphill jumping them and then landing on the flat part.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I was blowing through the top of them, and then the last one ended up being a hole. So I only got the track probably maybe a foot at most on top of the cornice.
Okay.
And then I had to tap the brake because of the tree, and then it just kicked me off.
Yeah.
And then it just flung the sled off of the cornice and cartwheeled right into me.
Yeah.
So, luckily, I got to say, 509 makes a great helmet. I mean, it honestly, I don't have to replace the helmet. The only thing I had to replace is a screw in the visor. So,
have you inspected the helmet super thoroughly? Because a lot of times those helmets will take a pretty good impact, and you've got to replace them after an impact like that. But I'm assuming you've checked it out thoroughly.
Yep, I checked all the foam. There's no impact marks in the foam.
Okay.
It was just enough. So I thought for sure I was going to have to replace it, but there's no impact, and they said I can send it to them, and they'll check it out if I want them to. Which I'll probably do in the off season.
Yeah. So. Yep. Sounds good. And then you end up with a fractured arm too, right? So the sled landed on your arm, or the running board landed on your arm, or what part of the sled hit your arm?
The far as it's the way I can tell it hit, it was the angle part of the running board.
Okay.
Landed across basically right here on my arm.
Okay.
So I ended up with 3 fractures, and then the membrane that runs between the 2 bones actually it's swollen about twice the size, super bruised.
Yeah.
So wrist movement's a little sore, and the fractures are healing okay. So nothing, just pressure fractures.
Yeah.
Well, no cast, luckily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, and so we've talked through the incident and kind of highlighted the specifics of it, but what I'd like to do is to kind of just go back and reflect on the day, and talk about maybe what could have or would have been different or should have been different and could have gone worse or could have gone better, right? Based on different
yeah,
decisions that maybe would have been made during the day, right? And
right.
one is it's a really relevant topic right now. I know recently, just in the last week or two, we've had a couple of avalanche deaths in the area, and both of which the avalanche beacons were not turned on. People were wearing beacons and on, and one of the ways that I think we've identified that we can address this is through these morning meetings, and I think that's something based on what I heard anyway. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it didn't sound like your team, when you got to the snow park and were getting ready to ride off, stopped and did a formal check. It sounds like you did a quick radio check. You maybe did parts of it, but probably not a full discussion of things like avalanche safety, beacon checks, all that kind of stuff. Or did you? Can you tell me what you did do?
Basically just sled prep.
Yeah.
But I mean, we should have done more of a meeting, but it was more or less like, all right, your radio's good, you're tight, your sled's ready to go.
Yep.
And we headed out.
Yeah, yeah. And beacon check's another one too. And because for example, if this situation wasn't you upside down on your sled, but was an avalanche, right? Had you been caught in an avalanche and you were around the corner away from people, were you wearing your beacon? Did you have it on? All those questions would have had to have been answered. Unfortunately, fortunately, that wasn't the situation this time for you. But those are the same reasons we would check all these different things that we do going into these sled preps and stuff. So the beacon check 2-way, the radio check both way. And the radio check's a big deal too, because it's really easy on a lot of these radios, specifically the BCA links, where they got the A, B, C, B, all the way through A through F button, and it's easy to just bump them slightly, and before you know it, you're on a whole different radio channel. So.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Then I use the Ride 208 radios.
Okay. Nice.
Me and Jason Brown, and Brad Chap and Todd Kramer, we all sell them and we use them.
Nice.
And they can be locked on the channel, which is great for that same aspect. I mean, BCA makes a great radio.
Yeah.
They do about the same exact thing. It's just the comfort and the style for me is I like them that you can't bump them.
Yep. No, exactly.
But the other thing that day, I mean, we should have had a longer meeting. I should have probably taken a straight shot up and looked at where I was going to jump, watched where I was jumping across, and also doing a buddy check, like have somebody ride, the long way with me. They would have been there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
To where without wearing that tether, since it was dead, I mean, and that was stupid on my part, not either putting batteries or putting a different tether on before we went to ride.
Yeah.
I mean, if it would have went wide open, I don't know if my leg was actually under the track, or I mean, it could have wrapped it up inside of the track and tore me up that way. And then, yeah, you're right. If that cornice would have fell off, there could have been enough snow there to actually cover me in. So finding out where I was at that point, when we could have done, beacon checks before,
Yeah.
A lot of things went wrong that day. I mean, granted, it worked out right.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's why we're so thankful to be here. And honestly, Ryan, one thing I don't want to go unrecognized is your courage in being able to come on the show, right, and to share your story in the hopes and the desires to just educate others, right? It's like it takes a big man, in my opinion, to come on and say, hey, man, I made mistakes. I had a close call, and I feel like people can learn from that. So, God bless you, love you for doing this. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, granted, it's kind of embarrassing because it's, some of it's just stupidity.
Yeah.
Big head stupidity. And I took off and without even ever trying to look. But, I don't want somebody else, it could have been a younger kid. And,
yeah.
If it would have hit me wrong, it could have broke my neck. It could have broke my back.
Yeah.
We try to be as safe in the sport as we can. But as you can see, the professionals that, are out there, there's still issues. There's still, and it's not intentional. It's just, sometimes it's the wrong place at the wrong time.
Nope, absolutely. So I'd like to go ahead. Yep, finish up. Yep.
No, 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 go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd like to dive a little deeper into a couple different topics, that you've touched on, but I'd like to just elaborate a little bit on them as for, just kind of educational purposes. And one, is the buddy system, right? And something that can be covered in a meeting in the morning is things like, trail etiquette. Hey, when we get to a play area, we need to make sure everybody's buddied up. And that's what I want to talk about for just a minute. And this is something that I say every time I get in my groups and my ride, but I will be honest with you, it's really, really hard to do. And here's why. Because here's what happens is, in spite of everybody's, best intentions of trying to buddy up, and even if you call it out in advance, here's a scenario that happens to me pretty consistently is you get different people, different riders in the group, and sometimes you're matched with skills and everybody can just hang together the whole time. Sometimes people are different skill levels, and as you approach the same terrain, one person may end up taking a left and the other person taking a right just because of skill abilities and to be able to navigate, a certain part of the terrain differently than the others. And before you know it, just like that, you're split up. And you may
Oh
or may
yeah.
not still be in visual sight. And in your case, you went in a situation where you went up and away and kind of, out of visual sight from your buddies, but they weren't very far away. So thank goodness they were close by versus, you peeling over the next ridge or two and then kind of getting on the radio and being like, "Oh yeah, hey, what happened?" I mean,
Yeah.
think if you
Yeah.
were if your buddy was 2 ridges away, they may not have even found you right away because, which tracks were yours, right? That kind of thing.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's in the morning meet, most of the time we have morning meetings, but this was kind of we rode roughly the same area, same kind of snow conditions. So,
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of took off. And,
Yep.
uh, now thinking back, my wife and everybody, they were kind of sitting at the bottom and playing down in the bottom. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to go hit that." And granted, I didn't kind of really give them a good idea of where I was going. I just took off.
Yeah.
And granted, where I went, she didn't have the skill level to go,
Mm-hmm.
and she wouldn't have come up there. She, granted, after everything happened, she came around to the top, but
Yeah.
still at the aspect, I didn't have anybody right there
Yep.
to where, if you keep in our morning meetings that we, usually have when we go ride, if there's new people, we always ask them how long you've been riding,
Yep.
can you side hill? Can you climb trees? What can't you do? What don't you want to do? So then you can kind of keep those skill levels to the same when you go play.
Yep. Nope.
And
Exactly. Well, there's been some pretty significant tragedies that have happened over the years by something very similar to yours, where you just peel off for a minute, even if your intent is to be with a group, but you peel off just for a minute out of sight or just far enough away where somebody from another skill level can't get to you. And Rene St. Ange, unfortunately, happened to him where he got off to a point where others couldn't get to him right away, and the sled was upside down on top of him, and he didn't survive that. He didn't make it, and that was about a year and a half ago now, or a little over a year ago, that our good friend Rene St. Ange up in British Columbia passed away in a similar accident where the machine was on top of him, and he wasn't able to be resuscitated when they did find him. Um, and it can feel like fun and games for a minute, but it's a reflection on how serious these things can be and happen. And yeah, I don't know anything else you want to elaborate on there about just kind of being alone for a minute. I think we've kind of nailed that pretty good. So
yeah, I mean, it's scary. You don't, all the things you start thinking of afterwards. I mean, it shook me up. I still rode the rest of the day and
yeah,
ended up in a creek afterwards trying to get back across to the trail. And
yeah,
so it ended up it was an okay day the rest of the day. But I mean, I started thinking about, I got 4 kids at home, and you just start thinking of all the things that could have happened.
yeah, yeah,
And that's why I want to share the stories, because I mean, it
yeah,
was just a normal, just jumping, just little cornices. I mean, they weren't nothing huge. And then
yep,
next thing you know, I'm trying to stay calm and wait for somebody to get the sled off of me, because
yeah,
I mean, like you said, if I would have been 2 ridges over the way I was laying, I mean, CO2 poisoning, I didn't have my tether, so the sled was still running.
yeah. That's what I
And
wanted to talk about next. Is that the tether piece of it, right? So let's dive into that for a minute. Is let's just talk about from the factory. Polaris, which is the sled you ride, doesn't come with a tether. Like, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, it's kind of BS that Polaris is still making machines that don't come with a tether, right? And I think I and others completely continue to just call Polaris out for that and hope that someday they'll make that change. But you've got Skidoo, Arctic Cat, and I don't know, Yamaha's just coming back out with their mountain sleds, but I would assume because they're manufactured with Arctic Cat, most likely they have a tether on also right from the factory. And you went out of the way and added a tether, right? But then had an
yeah,
additional problem that you talked about a little bit. But let's elaborate on the tether is called, right? It's kind of a
Yep.
wireless tether system, and it requires
Yeah.
batteries.
Yeah, it's a basically just a receiver inside of the sled.
Okay.
So you pull the rope once, then it fires that, and then it looks for the signal from the bracelet that you wear. And it just takes those little 2032 watch batteries.
Okay.
The problem is the signal that it's sending drains those batteries.
Okay.
But I was on and off my sled so much. The last 2 years, I've helped teach probably 7 new riders get into the sport.
Yeah.
And so I got tired of constantly, digging the snow out of it and putting it back on. So I was like, well, I'll try this wireless one. Well, towards the end of the season, I started running out of batteries, and oh, I'll just ride without.
Yeah.
No big deal, it's just one day. And then you end up in a situation like this to where, it could have been way worse. If the sled would have landed on its other side, it could have went wide open, landed on top of me.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of
Which,
years ago in the Bighorns, there was actually that guy that got sucked up into his skidoo because he wasn't wearing his tether, and it
yep.
landed on the bars and sucked him right in. I mean, I could have been the same scenario
Yeah.
because I didn't want to go buy batteries or put the new. And I've got a Arctic Cat magnetic tether that I'm going to put in it. I just didn't take the time to do it before we left.
Yep. No,
And
absolutely. And that anytime a sled goes upside down while it's running, the likelihood of the throttle being pinched or pinned is high. Like I've seen it over and over again where the sleds are rolling upside down when they're running, and the throttle just kicks that track up going too. And based on how the sled landed on you, it was on its side. You were on your side, and the sled kind of running board on your side. If that track was
yep.
spinning fast, it would have done some serious damage on you. Had that happen. So
Oh yeah. It could have been way worse. I mean, it could
yeah,
end up, rubber burns, exhaust poisoning, CO2 poisoning. Even if it doesn't kill you, it can still have long-term effects. It kills
exactly.
enough brain cells.
Yeah.
It's just not. It was just a dumb mistake. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it's no big deal. I'm a decent enough rider. I don't need to wear one.
Yeah. Well, and what I want to do is and I want to make sure it's really clear to those who are watching is I'm not, and I don't think you are, we're not belaboring the actual accident and what happened. What we're trying to do is to just take a moment, step back in hindsight and look at like, what could I have done differently? What did go right? Like what did go right is you were riding with buddies and you did have a radio on. If you didn't even have a
Yes.
radio on, that would have been a traumatic difference in how things would have been an outcome. And so the fact that you had a radio on, you double checked the channel, a lot of things went right, and your buddy was right there to come back and get you because you were just around the corner, barely out of sight. So
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And no, I don't want to. It's just those little things. Like I just want people to know, like your tethers. Like if you got it, but buddies want you to do a ride right now. I
yeah,
mean, and I've put tethers on all kinds of sleds for people. I mean, they only take 15 minutes. Even if you got a bad one on
yeah,
take it to the dealership, have them replace it. Players, it's just a plug and play. Like spend the money. I know they don't come with it, and I wish they did brand new.
yeah.
Like I wish players would make one, but
I can
just
almost guarantee you it will have to happen someday because as long as this stuff continues to happen and as many times as folks like me and you keep calling them out for it, at some point someone's got to listen. I just don't see, if it was a thing about liability and warranty and responsibility, like if there was a legit legal reason why they don't have it on there, guess what? Skidoo and Arctic Cat wouldn't and Yamaha wouldn't have it on there either, right? It would be a national
exactly.
problem or an international problem. It wouldn't be unique to Polaris. So it is kind of lame that that's that's the situation there. But again, it'll come eventually. But in the meantime, do yourself a favor and add a tether to your sled, and be smart about which one you're using because there's benefits and drawbacks to all of them. So
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, I've tried, I'm trying different ones now, just, but I'll never ride without one again. I mean, Kelly, he's a great guy. He's president of 307 Riders in Gillette, but he chewed me out as the first thing he did when he threw the sled off me. Where is your tether?
yeah,
Your sled was sitting here running on top of you. Where the hell was your tether?
yeah. Well, and when you and I talked on the phone initially, I was actually the one that called out to you like, hey, had you even considered the carbon monoxide poisoning that could have happened had you sat there for 5-10 minutes? Maybe you were perfectly fine and you were okay, and if someone found you 20 minutes later you would have been alive. But had that carbon monoxide continued to just run and run and run and settle in that area that you were in that hole, like that could have been a bad thing all by itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. I mean, thinking all the other things that could have happened, but then you pointed it out, and it was, that whole, it made me realize how dumb it was to not have a tether. Like
Yeah,
the little things.
yep.
You're right. I mean, the little things, checking all the little things, and then even as little as doing a tether check when you first start your sled up for the day.
Oh yeah, good
Like
call.
start it up, warm it up, because one of the guys that was with us, my buddy Zach, When we first got out there, he fell off of his sled and it was still running.
Oh wow.
His tether had stuck up. It was a button style, the pro
Okay.
taper button style, or the pro armor taper style, and he fell off his sled and it didn't kill. It stuck up.
Yep.
So I mean, we put a little oil in it and got it working again, before we took off. But
Nice. Nice.
I mean, it could have been bad for him,
Cool. Well, we're
crazy.
thankful. We're thankful that
Oh,
you're here to be able to tell us the story and that everything did work out okay. A little fracture, a little time in the hospital, getting it patched up, sounded like it wasn't too bad. And,
no.
the rest of the season, it's probably time to just take a break anyway and get prepped up for next season. So, anything exciting planned for next season? Any big trips or anything?
Not yet. The wife wants to do a McCall, Idaho trip. She wants to go to
There
the
you
hot
go.
spring and stay a night. And I know she wants to do that. And then probably just buddy trips to Togety, some more family trips to the Bighorns, Black Hills.
Yeah.
Try to put it. This year was kind of a rough year for us. My wife had back surgery in
Okay.
January. And at that time, we had just bought a new house that I'm fully remodeling. So this season was kind of a short mileage year for us. So
Yeah.
next year, we plan on probably putting as many miles on as we can.
Yep. Yep. We'll heal up and get recovered and prep up for next season is what I'll tell you. But
Oh,
really appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts? Any final words? Any final thank yous to your buddies who saved your butt on the mountain that day?
oh yeah. I just got to thank Kelly, Dustin, Chris, Zach, and my wife for all being there when everything happened. I got to thank you for the shows, with all the knowledge that, your help getting out there. And
Yeah.
just with everything, with safety, with clubs, everything, I got to thank you.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to your wife. And just everybody ride safe. It's been kind of a crazy year for accidents and everything.
Yeah.
Ride safe. Kiss your families at night.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, stories like this and your appreciation for the show are the things that motivate me to keep going with the show, right? It's, I sometimes ask myself over and over again, like, why the heck do I put so much time and energy and effort into this? And then all it takes is a story like this to feel like, okay, someone thought about something we said once that helped potentially save their life that day. And, if I'm making a difference out there, whether it be people wanting to get avalanche education, people taking time to think about stopping, calming down, and, clipping the radio, every piece of that makes me feel like I'm making a difference in this world. And, it's what Live Large is all about, brother. It's like make a difference in the world, make the most of every day and, make it, help others as much as you can. And that's what we do out here.
Oh, definitely. We do the same thing here too. It's just, teaching, keeping the younger generation taught on all the avalanche equipment, all the safety equipment, making sure, I rode with some guys and gave them my older helmets just
Yeah.
because, wearing stuff from garage sales and
Yeah.
like just helping out the younger generation, keeping things going.
Yeah. Well, and here's something I really want to share with everybody too, because something that I struggle with personally is, what people who watch the show and are engaged in the show, get the message, and frankly, in many cases, they're not the ones that need the message, right? Like, and so how do you continue to spread the information, the message, the word out about all of this stuff that we talk about each week on these shows? And there's several things I'll recommend, right? One of which is the obvious, which is what we're doing here tonight, is sharing the show, getting it out there. And, I don't care if, Yuma Weeks here shares the show on their page and two more people see it. Guess what? That's two more people that see it that never would have seen it before, potentially. Kevin Murray, share it to your personal page, share it to a couple of sled pages, and the more it gets out there. But here's the other piece, folks, is just like Ryan talked about here tonight on the show, is those setting examples for your peers, right? When you go ride with new people, your normal riding crew, and you become insistent on things like a morning prep meeting to talk about avalanche danger, checking your radios, make sure your tethers are working, all of these things that honestly a lot of people look at and kind of laugh about. They're like, frankly, I get ridiculed and criticized even by local riders here in my area. I see it on social media. They tease me about being Mr. Safety, and I'm just like, you know what? I'll take that, right? Like I'll take that lump on my head because I know it's making a difference for others. But some people will just laugh it off and be like, "Oh, there's Safety Sally over there." Like, ha ha ha. Make sure you're sitting down on your sled on the trail. And that's the thing, is like, my show isn't going to make a difference to people like that. What's going to make a difference to people like that are when you, Ryan, or anybody else in this thing is riding with those folks, You become insistent that, you know what, we're gonna do a beacon check today. We're gonna talk about avalanche danger. We're gonna talk about buddying up because you know what, my life as a rider is too important for me to go ride with you, Ryan, if you don't take this stuff seriously.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we all want to go home to our families at night. So those guys that, and I've rode with a lot of those guys. They just go out, they take off, and then you start thinking like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, and then also making sure, you ride with people that don't have avalanche training. Like, my wife doesn't yet, which we plan on next year.
Yep.
So, she would always, we'd kind of veer away from any areas like that just because she's not ready to be in that scene. So we
Yeah.
don't take her to that scene.
Yep. Cool, man.
So,
Well, I think we've hashed this one out tonight far enough. So I'm gonna wrap this up and then just tell everybody, thank you, Ryan, for jumping on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't already, please share this out. We'd love to get the message out as much as we can. God bless everybody and live large. Have a great night.
live large, man. Have a good night.